So before I do my Pisces new moon video on Wednesday, and as a reminder, I do my new moon videos after the new moon. And please trust me on this, you're not going to need that new moon video until after the new moon. As much as you might try to do something around the Pisces new moon prior to the new moon, it's not going to hold. And the videos I'm doing today and tomorrow are quite relevant to the Pisces new moon. I'll say this. Just be prepared that now we are in the dark of the moon and we are less than 48 hours away from the new moon. So we may feel sluggish. It may be harder for us to get things done. Even if the universe or the world or whatever is putting a lot of things on your to-do plate, to-do list, it may be harder to get through it, or the energy may not be there, or you might be resentful or irritated by how much has to get done. And the moon is now in Aquarius, which is where the last new moon was. So it is wrapping up the last new moon cycle. So this is a time of release. This is a time ideally of rest. This is a time of less strenuous activity or less activity. And if we were to really just kind of harmonize with the lunar cycle, this would be a time of, it might even feel a little bit flat and a little bit depressed and a little bit hopeless. Not unusual for these 48 odd hours to feel like, oh my God, is anything ever going to happen? And, oh, everything seems so like, can I ever be hopeful again? You know, all those kinds of dark of the moon feelings that we go through every month at around this time can surface again. And it's amazing how potent they are. But then, of course, we will have the new moon on a Wednesday, and the wind will get behind the sails again. And as I like to say, the wave will start to move towards the shore again, and for 2 weeks till the full moon in Virgo in the middle of March, gather momentum, energy, activity. Okay, so I would certainly, as far as this new moon in Pisces is concerned, and I know some of us are always eager to get in front of the new moon, I would say nothing wrong, as I said in my last video, and I would definitely look at that last video. Thank you for people who have given me feedback that it was feedback that it was useful and helpful. I would say process before you head to Wednesday. Process what has happened since the last new moon in Aquarius at the end of January, last day of January, January 31st, I think. Especially pay attention to events and things that occurred, acceleration after February the 7th, whether you were able to avail of an opportunity by February 15th, 16th or so and execute on it the following week, whether you were not able to, what you learned from the process about what strategy works for you with regard to availing of opportunities. March is an extremely important month, and from what I can see, gets my vote for the most important month of the year, perhaps, or something along those lines, because with the new moon on Wednesday conjunct Jupiter, and with the full moon 2 weeks later trining the North Node, there's greater acceleration. You're not going to feel like it right now for the next 48 hours or even 72 hours, but there's potential for greater movement and more aligned movement. So nothing wrong with the rest of Monday and Tuesday, or, you know, whenever before the new moon occurring on Wednesday, at least Pacific time in the morning, whenever it's occurring for you, nothing wrong with reflecting on what the last 28 odd days have been like, and where you have been able to pass certain tests or avail of certain opportunities and where you have not, without too much despair. Learn the lesson. There's nothing you can do about it. Just learn, just think about the lessons and learn from them, because things may come back around and you will get back on the horse. It's the way it goes. Now, I want to spend some time before I get to the Pisces new moon talking about today regarding planetary activity in Capricorn, and then talk tomorrow about planetary activity in Aquarius. The signs go Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and there's enough going on in these signs, and especially in Capricorn on March the 3rd, the day after the new moon, Venus and Mars conjunct Pluto. And that is an important, and this is why I said I might do my new moon video after the new moon, but the most important transit occurring, outside of the fact that the new moon is conjunct Jupiter, yay, is the fact that Venus and Mars conjunct Pluto. Now, I was going to title this video War and Peace, but that feels exploitative given what is going on in the world right now. And my videos tend to focus on personal stuff and not global stuff, but we can't ignore the fact that when Mars and Pluto make stressful aspects, oppositions, squares, conjunctions, warlike tendencies appear. And Capricorn as a sign is associated with authority, conventional authority structures, authoritarian structures. It's a feminine sign, which I think is fascinating and makes sense to me in some ways, but it's given this very masculine, it's given this kind of very hyper masculine quality sometimes with regard to achievement and resumes and power and consolidation and traditional and conservative ways of doing things and traditional and conservative ways of exercising power and feeling like you're on the top of the food chain and the ladder. Okay. Certainly, I'm seeing more and more on YouTube around how the Venus-Mars conjunction with Pluto is indicating the war, but I get really irritated. You know, we've seen this coming for a long time. And it bugs me when astrologers start to change the narrative a little bit as things occur, because I'm like, why didn't we see this coming in the way that we saw this coming? It gives astrology a bad name when, you know, things start to shift around a certain amount. And it's just like, okay, well, all of a sudden, Venus-Mars conjunct Pluto is about the war. And it might be, but we missed something there. And we learn as astrologers continually. So I'm seeing some interesting and compelling data about how Venus, given when she rises now, you know, might stand for the war goddess Athena, and just like, okay, but again, you know, why are we rationalizing it now? Okay, let's come back to, I'll talk about the global politics in a second. I want to first talk about all the planetary activity that has occurred in Capricorn. It will help you if you know what Capricorn sits in your chart, what house it occupies, and what that house stands for, okay? It will also help you to know that with Pluto in Capricorn and planets conjuncting Pluto multiple times, Mercury and Venus 3 times each since November, Pluto is the planet of death and transformation. It is the planet of power. It is the planet sometimes called the terrorist planet. It is the planet of change. It is the planet that transforms the sector of your chart where it is transiting. And there is nothing you can do about that change. The further the planets get away from us, the less agency we have. And with Pluto, really, we have no choice, like with the death card in the tarot, but to submit. And I read an astrologer describe sort of Pluto's effect as, you know, kind of the barn burns down and you can see the moon. And I think that that is an optimistic and a positive way to look at it. The transformations are not always negative. In fact, the transformations, if you really pay attention to the transformation that has occurred in the house that is occupied by Capricorn in your chart, may indeed, if the universe is granting you with blessings, may indeed be positive. And you may, again, as I said in my last video, what is positive and what is negative and what is good luck and what is bad luck from a cosmic perspective is very different from what we might be expecting. Getting a promotion at a job that you fundamentally dislike and is keeping you from doing something more enjoyable might seem like good luck to you, but if it keeps you there for another 10, 15 years and your life just goes by, which is it, good luck or bad luck? Is getting laid off from that job so that you can move in a certain direction that is more fruitful or feels truer to you a better option? Now, we all have to determine what our values are with regard to what we value as we navigate through things such as that help us determine what is good luck or bad luck. But Pluto's transformations can be positive if we avail of them and if we avail of the signals that Pluto is giving us and this kind of wrecking ball quality that it has of transforming that part of the chart. Now, here we go. Venus was the first. Now, one more thing. The Sun, Mercury, and Venus travel close to each other. And when the Sun is in a certain part of the chart, we will have at least one new moon in that part of the chart. Rarely, but sometimes, we'll have 2 new moons in a part of the chart. Sorry, there's a cat in the neighborhood that goes for a walk. And sometimes he likes to wail outside different apartments or whatever it is, so you might hear him wailing. He's very sweet, but, you know, he's talkative. So, the Sun, Mercury, and Venus travel together. Wherever the Sun goes, there's a new moon. And sometimes Mars follows close by. Okay, I'm not going to go more into the astronomy of this right now. The sequence by which this occurs, which planet enters first, and when the new moon occurs, and what planets trail behind to close something out is important, because it gives us a sense of how things related to that house every year will unfold. I say every year because at roughly the same time, at least, the Sun enters the same part of the chart every year. The Sun enters Aries, you know, at the time of the spring equinox. The Sun enters, give or take a day or two. You know, the Sun enters Aquarius around January the 21st. The Sun enters Pisces around February the 20th. The Sun enters Aries around March the 21st, you know, a day or two. So at least we know with the Sun it's going to enter the same part of the chart at the same time. During the 30-odd days when it's in that part of the chart, we'll have one new moon, sometimes two new moons. And somewhere around there, Venus and Mercury are going to swish about as well, and sometimes Mars. The main activity occurs depending on which planets are coming in and what they are bubbling up. With Mercury, it's communication. With Venus, it's what we value. With Mars, it's where our energy goes. I'm being simplistic, but I don't feel like I have a ton of time to talk about this. The bulk of the activity occurs when the new moon occurs for the 4 weeks after that. So stay with me on this. But then after the new moon occurs and we switch to another new moon, like we're switching to on March the 2nd, for about 3 or 4 days, Venus and Mars remain behind to finish up a set of activity that started as early as November. The first planet of these to enter Capricorn as part of the annual visit was Venus on November the 5th. Do not rake me over hot coals over my use of the word annual when it comes to Venus and Mercury. I know that those are not technically annual cycles. I'm just saying annual because I look at their entries and exits in a sign in relationship to the Sun's entry and exit to the sign and a new moon in that part of the chart, in that sign, okay? Venus entered on November the 5th, the sign of Capricorn, went retrograde December the 19th, and went direct to January the 29th, and leaves Capricorn for Aquarius on March the 6th. Why is my neighborhood so noisy? All of a sudden, in the mornings, it's bliss with birdsong. Give me a second. I don't know if you can hear it, but oh, God, help us. But part of it is that when I am doing these videos, it requires a certain kind of focus that even the slightest bit of noise feels, I just hear it as this massive invasion. Sorry about that. So Venus entered November the 5th. December the 19th, Venus went retrograde. January the 29th, it went direct. March the 6th, it's out. March the 3rd, importantly, it conjuncts Pluto for the 3rd time. Because it went direct, it went over Pluto once, retrograde twice, went a fair amount of way back, and now direct. Along with Mars, Venus is the female or feminine side, Mars is our male side, and they conjunct Pluto, the planet of death and transformation. And Mars and Pluto, Mars conjunctions with Pluto, fair. You know, we have to look at them in the context of things like war and battle and power, and more on that a little bit later. Mercury was the next planet to enter, and so when it comes to, Mercury was the next planet to enter December the 13th. Mercury went all the way through Capricorn, entered Aquarius January 2nd, retrograde January 14th, back in Capricorn January 26th, direct February 4th, conjuncted Pluto on February 11th, and then in Aquarius February 14th. So Mercury's already come, done part of its retrograde, and left. I'll tell you what all of this means. The dates are here for those of you who really want to piece things together. I'm giving you the dates. You can rewind, get the dates, write them down, and try and piece things together if you're feeling that way. The sun entered Capricorn on December 21st, as it does, and on January the 2nd, we had a new moon in Capricorn. So between January the 2nd and January the 31st, there was action in the Capricorn part of your chart. You may not think that that action is relevant, but it is. And then Mars entered on January the 24th and leaves on March the 6th. Mars and Venus, for the umpteenth time, conjunct Pluto on March the 3rd, and they leave Capricorn to go into Aquarius on March the 6th. What does all of this mean? In a few sentences, it's possible that the part of the chart that has to do with Capricorn, there was mounting dissatisfaction. What do I value? Complication, stress, unhappiness, setting up for some sort of transformation that is on its way to being completed. The big question is, what completes a transformation? And I will come to that. With Venus going retrograde December 19th, we entered what I've been referring to as the birth canal. And for an even higher view of this, look at my last video, where what we value in this part of the chart, but it may have felt in general, was going through a review. How do I align with the changes that have announced themselves between September 19th and November 19th, 2021. Look at my last video, please, if you want more on that. How do I align with that? And how do I align what I value? How do I align my finances? How do I align my relationships to where it is that things are trying to go in that direction? And the alignment could be considered broadly, but it can also be considered, and this is very important what I'm going to say, it can also be considered in the light of where Capricorn sits in your chart, because the Capricorn part of the chart is trining and is in harmony with the Taurus part of your chart, where the North Node eclipse is occurring and where Uranus is. So the transformations that are being brought about in the Capricorn part of your chart are trying to support where it is that you need to go and what is trying to grow in your life now. Okay, so this reevaluation and this rethinking and this dissatisfaction that may have been brewing since November in the Capricorn part of your chart, and whatever showed up in January as maybe an alternative or as something new or as something as a new direction, or whatever showed up in January might be a sign or a signal of where it is that things are trying to grow. Now, once Venus went direct and once Mars came into the picture and once Mercury went direct, it could be, as I've said to you before, it could be that either the situation has changed or we wanted to change the situation, or else our attitude towards the situation has changed. And those things that felt insurmountable or challenging or problematic, or we wanted to quit something or do something in November, December, or heading in that direction, we may have changed our perspective on those complications and that whatever it might be, that relationship, that job, that situation, because we may have seen how it is supporting where it is that we need to grow and what new energies have made their presence felt in our lives since September 19th and November 19th. I will be the first to acknowledge that these videos are a little bit complicated, but for those who are really interested, by all means, stay with it. Now, with Mars and Venus conjuncting Pluto, it's the final transformation. It's the final creative transformation in this part of the chart. It's a decisiveness. It's like, with all the reflecting and all the angst and the reconsidering and the reevaluation and the this and the that and the whatever, it's a resolve. It's like, okay, this is the direction in which I'm going to move. This is where I'm going to go. It doesn't have to be here. But with Venus and Mars together, it is the creative spark. And conjuncting Pluto, it is the creative spark that is going to transform this part of your chart starting March the 3rd. Quite frankly, it's been building. As I've always told you, the date of a transit is not as important as the days leading up to it. Now, from a global perspective, there are so many interpretations, but I'm just going to say let's just watch and wait and see what happens as we head towards March the 3rd and March the 6th. From a global perspective, I actually want to talk about it in the Aquarius video, because Mars and Venus go into Aquarius, and that continues the narrative. And even if there's a push towards a more conventional victory as we head towards March the 3rd, the question with Mars and Venus in Aquarius following that is, what are the repercussions of that victory? If Capricorn is a much more brutally conventional sign, Aquarius is a brutally rational and sign that is committed to social justice. So let's just see. There's a wild card element to this. With Mars conjunct Pluto, that is a violent transit. With Venus in the mix, Venus is not as strong as Mars, and Venus is status conscious in Capricorn. Does something backfire? I don't know. I think that as we head, I think it's possible that there's a conventional victory as we head towards the 3rd or the 6th of March, followed by revolt and rebellion. The only thing preventing that is the Venus wildcard. Will she, with this conjunction with Mars and Pluto, because she is the planet of peace as opposed to war, will something there backfire? Will the creative spark it's a little bit like if a gun is pointed in one direction and it might go off, or it looks to go off. With Venus in the mix, will it somehow go off in the other direction? If that makes sense. I'm going to expand on the global situation more in the Aquarius video tomorrow. Today, and I think that this is what is vitally important to each of us personally, to those of us who are not dealing with survival issues. Whatever you have gone through since September the 19th, but in the Capricorn part of your chart since November, and they are related and they're supporting each other. And if you want to understand September 19th, look at my last video. Okay, I'm not going to repeat all of that again. By now, by March the 3rd, you are going to reach a place of, and I'm saying this because Venus rules the heart, Mars the solar plexus, the male and the female come together, they conjunct with the planet of transformation, and you are going to resolve to transform the Capricorn part of your chart. You might take action to do so. The action is less important to me than the resolve, than the seed, than the spark. Venus and Mars together is a match being lit. And with Pluto, they're assisting this transformation in this part of the chart. Now, if you were able to avail of certain opportunities in February, then they get to contribute to this. If you were not, do not despair, reflect, think about what you learned, align with your North Node placement and where it is and how it is it's trying to get you to grow in your natal chart. Align with the North Node in Taurus transit and the eclipses in Taurus and what is trying to grow there. And sorry, the video got cut off, as you know my videos tend to do. So this is the second part of it edited onto the first. as I was saying, align with the North Node strategies and be cognizant of the fact that the nature of the transformation that you are trying to create might have something to do with certain activities in January, might have something to do with the 4 weeks after January the 2nd, after that new moon in Capricorn. It could be that for some portion of January, you were doing something that had a more future feel to it, which is ironic because when we look at the dissatisfaction that is in the chart in November and December, it talks about the old, and some part of the January talks about the new. And then as the planets go direct at the end of January and we enter the Aquarius cycle, we enter February, the pace starts up, but the new moon conjunct Saturn is a kind of a hard-ass new moon. It's kind of intense. You know, it's a little bit like butter will not melt. You know, I know that it's in Aquarius, but it's a new moon conjunct Saturn. And so this idea of tests and being tested and opportunity, you know, as I said in my last video, opportunities February 7th to 15th accelerating, it's like some section of the population avails of it and then produces the week after the Leo full moon. Some population does not and goes into kind of a tailspin of learning. But now that this Venus-Mars conjunction Pluto is occurring, with everything that has happened, it is a call to action, and it is that spark of alignment. And you don't get much better new moons than a new moon conjunct. You don't get better new moons than a new moon conjunct Jupiter. And a Venus-Mars conjunction, which so many people have been talking so positively about, except that we find ourselves in the middle of a war for months now, all said and done, is a conjunction to celebrate. And there's something about both globally and personally, there's something about the conjunction with Pluto transitioning into 3 days later, the entry into Aquarius. It could be that the actions that you need to take that will transform the Capricorn part of your chart first have to do with actions that need to be taken in the Aquarius part of your chart. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. So if you know which house Capricorn sits in and which house Aquarius sits in, it could be, as I said, that some part of that whatever this transformation is that is trying to occur, that the next step to it is, so whatever is being transformed in the Aquarius part of your chart, what house that sits in, what house that occupies, what that house stands for, that the next step or the next series of steps that you need to take to avail of this spark and create that transformation are actions that need to be taken related to the part of the chart where Aquarius sits, the house it occupies, and what that house stands for. And similarly, from a global perspective, I am not optimistic about heading to March the 3rd. Not with a Mars-Pluto conjunction. That is a violent conjunction. The only wild card is, as I said, if Venus somehow flips the gun somehow. I am more optimistic, fundamentally, about the new moon conjunct Jupiter and the 4 weeks it sets up. And I'm more optimistic about the entry of the planets into Aquarius after March the 6th. Now, Aquarius is kind of, in its own way, another hard-ass sign. And it may very well be, with Aquarius, it's always a little bit tricky because everybody has to question their assumptions of what they know to be true. Aquarius is totally fact-based. It is almost frustratingly and annoyingly literal. And scientific. If I can see it, if I can touch it, if it makes sense to me, it is real. Otherwise, it is not real. Oh, great. And now my cat wants to be let in because he wants to eat his food. Oh my God. What a turbulent putting together this video. Valentine, be quiet. Sorry, excuse me. Jesus. It's like, clockwork. He's fed at 7 o'clock and it's 6:46. So, the world is coming to an end. Has to. How could he be outside? Anyway, I'm going to leave you with this to reflect on. Capricorn part of your chart, dissatisfaction November, December. New moon, January the 2nd. As you are reevaluating finances, relationships, your values related to this part of the chart, as Mercury goes retrograde, also for part of its time in this part of the chart, January possibly brings some activities that are somewhat futuristic and highlight what this new direction might be. February 7th onwards brings its own acceleration of certain events and certain lessons that are reminders and tests that are reminders of how each of us individually, and it's not the same advice for everybody. This is the beauty of North Node astrology. Some people are required to be more intuitive. Some people are required to be less intuitive and more fact-based. Some people are required to let go of control. Some people are required to show up and exercise control and create their own reality. It's not the same advice for everybody. The question is, what is the strategy that works for you? And whether you avail of the opportunity or not, the more important thing was a cosmic reminder to say, stuff's going to be happening in March, so align. And then March the 3rd, we have the Venus-Mars conjunction, and the transformation occurs. Transformations do not occur when things manifest. Transformations occur when we resolve to change things and when we're given that spark, because we can want to change things. We can even resolve to change things under certain astrological transits. But with a Mars-Venus conjunction, you've got the male principle and the female principle together with, God help us, Pluto. And on a personal perspective, and I'm not talking the global perspective here, whatever needs to be transformed in the sign of Capricorn, you are being given that resolve to say, go for it now. With all this activity and all the signs that have been brewing since November, build on this. Align this transformation with growth in the sign of Taurus and where that sits in your chart. And the Taurus eclipses, November 19th, September 19th to November 19th, 2021, and more to come. Uranus and Taurus on their way to conjuncting Pluto, Venus and Mars be trining that North Node in Taurus right now. And after the spark is lit, it could very well be, as I said, that the actions that need to be taken to create this transformation in the Capricorn part of your chart actually have to be taken in the Aquarius part of your chart. And that will lead me to my next video, which I will do tomorrow. Thanks for sticking with me for all this time. From a global perspective, I was thinking on my feet. I don't like cop-out things. So I'm just going to say I'm not optimistic about the Mars-Venus-Pluto conjunction on March the 3rd because of the Mars-Pluto conjunction. And that is a violent conjunction. It could be that with Venus, as I said, there's some sort of a wild card quality and it changes the direction of a conventional victory. I think that it's possible or likely that we're not happy about the outcome as this week progresses. But there's a larger question of what occurs in the 3 or 4 weeks following. Some of that may be surprising to all of us and may be a bit of a slap in the face to all of us because in the sign of Aquarius, everything has to be scrutinized for what is known to be true. And all of us are provided with arguments that are strong and solid about something opposite to what we actually think. So if I say, you know, people always have trouble sleeping around a full moon, the sign of Aquarius will turn around and say, but have you done the research, and how many people have you actually polled, and what does the data say, and is that really true, or is that just astro BS? You know, under Aquarius, everything just goes like, what is real, what is real, what is real? And that kind of energy confronts all of us, whether you're liberal or conservative, or which side of the war battle you're on, or what it is that you know or you don't. Everything goes into questioning mode. But Aquarius is very much it's not really a sign that favors aggression unless it is absolutely necessary. It is not, it is a humanitarian sign. So unless we're presented with some sort of compelling argument as to why this aggression is necessary, and everyone has a perspective. The astrology as we had, you know, and with the new moon conjunct Jupiter, there's the energy becomes lighter as we head into March, but we've got to get past March the 3rd. We've got to get past March the 3rd. And someone could, if they're really keen, really just look at this Ukraine crisis and look at all the transits that have been occurring since November in the sign of Capricorn and see how things have developed. You know, with the Venus entry, with the Venus retrograde, with the Mercury entry, with the Sun entry, with the new moon, with Mercury going retrograde, with both Venus and Mercury going direct, with the acceleration since February the 7th, with whatever intensified around February the 15th, and now as we head towards March the 3rd. So it could be that as we head towards March the 3rd and March the 6th, there's some sort of completion related to conventional power structures that has an element of destruction and force and war to it. The next question becomes, what happens when all these planets go into Aquarius and Pisces? More on that tomorrow. All right, I will leave it to this. If you found this useful or fun or whatever, feel free to like it, leave a comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you're notified every time I do a new video, and we will leave it at that. You're welcome to, I post this in various places on Twitter and on Facebook, so if you do choose to like it or leave a comment, it's that much stronger. I think if you do it on YouTube, it gives it a little bit more circulation, but it doesn't matter. I love you all. Thank you for sticking with me, those of you who watch my stuff, and until tomorrow, thanks, bye.